What's up, my goofy goobers? Welcome to Voicey here. This is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/StoriesAboutKevin with a little bonus from r/Today I Fudged Up.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.
This story's called How a Kevin Managed to Graduate from College with a Physics Degree, Integrated Masters. It was a bumpy ride. Part 1 out of 2, I hope. Buckle up. This is gonna be long and full of stories. I was studying astrophysics at the time, so me and Kevin had some modules in common. His integrated master's in physics engineering was a 5-year program, and as far as I was able to keep tabs, he had 10+ enrollment when he finished. Yes, it took him over 10 years to graduate. I witnessed in person the glory of his Kevinness during the 5 years I was there. At first, I was in the same program as him, but then I had a change of heart and decided to start fresh in astrophysics. Now, my theory was that inside his little head, he had a cymbal-banging monkey instead of a fully functioning brain. My classmates/friends disagreed. They are certain that his skull is just full of emptiness and vacuum. You could scream in his left ear, and someone by his right ear wouldn't hear anything because sound wouldn't have a medium to travel. Physics joke. We actually once made this joke in front of him, and he just laughed, completely oblivious of what it meant. He didn't get it despite already being 4 years deep on a physics college degree. So I will try to write this chronologically because some scholars might want to study the evolution of this fine specimen over these years. And as a bonus, I will bring you 2 instances where he actually explained to me his thought process behind an action that he took. A sneak peek into Kevin's brain, if you will, and how it definitely does not work. The first encounter. Start of the semester of my 2nd year, I am in front of the physics department in the sun chatting to a friend. This guy with a backpack only on one shoulder, despite it having 2 straps, is approaching the entrance and shouts, "Is this the physics department?" We signal that it is. He starts marching to the door. His empty backpack falls from his shoulder, down along his arm to the point that it's almost touching the ground. He stops, looks at it, shrugs, and goes for his next step. He trips on the second loose strap of his own backpack. While trying to maintain balance, doing that weird dance people make when they try not to fall down, he grabs the only thing available, the entrance ashtray. Me and my friend are now just silently looking at this dude, legs spread out on the floor, hugging the ashtray. He gets up and with a foolish smile says, "I'm Kevin." He then walks into the building. So far so good. It could have been an isolated incident. Tough luck on the new dude, we thought. We were wrong. Now, the first year, I didn't have classes with him. I was on my 2nd year and he was a freshman. This is before I changed degrees. But I heard some stories that happened during class about some dumb freshman, but I was still oblivious that it was the same guy. The only thing that I actually witnessed was this. Our university was located by the sea, so we had a lot of seagulls on campus. And anyone that attends or attended college in similar conditions knows seagulls are a pain in the ass. They try to steal your food and they don't give up. So everyone during the first week would sit outside waiting for the happy little freshmen to come out of the building with their lunch in hand, just to be met by an army of hungry seagulls that were just lurking and waiting on the roof, ready to attack. This happened to me when I was a freshman and to every freshman before me since ever. No one would alert them and we just enjoyed the show. Naturally, the freshmen learned their lesson and, like us older students, would eat their lunch inside the building and then come hang out outside. Except, of course, for Kevin. Kevin didn't understand why he was being targeted by multiple seagulls almost every day. He insisted on having his lunch outside to the point that we were already on the 2nd semester and I saw his lunch being taken dozens of times, multiple days in a row, from his hands, by a seagull, and him shouting to the sky, "Why do you hate me?" His 2nd year. Now to the juicy bits when I was actually sitting in the same classroom as him. One day, Kevin decided to take notes on his laptop rather than his notebook. 15 minutes before the class ended, his laptop died due to not having been charged and he lost everything. Tough luck, but fair enough, right? The next day, the same thing happened. The lecture was interrupted halfway through by his cursing and he was asked to leave. Days later, I enter the classroom and he is arguing with some other student that he needed a seat because it was near an outlet and he needed to keep his laptop charged. He learned, I thought, but then he started cursing again because he only had the half of the charger that connected to the outlet. The other half that had the transformer and connected to the laptop was at home. In his anger, he tore apart that half of the cable, it was old and falling apart by its own anyway, only to find the transformer half in a different pocket of his backpack. He sat defeated and just left. 24 hours before an exam, he asked me if I had an extra scientific calculator that he could use that was required to sit that exam. I said no, and that he should request one at the library today so he wouldn't have to worry about it tomorrow before the exam. He said, "Nah, it's cool. My sister must have borrowed mine from my backpack. I'll just ask for it back tonight." The next day, he is freaking out because his sister didn't have it and the library was out of calculators. He had to sit the exam without one. Outside, I run into him and ask how it went, and he says badly because of the lack of calculator. But he wants to show me some answers he wrote on his draft sheet. You guessed it, he found the calculator in his backpack at that exact moment. I saw his soul die a little. It was in his backpack the whole time. He failed that module. I once saw him freaking out because he lost his wallet. Again. And by again, I mean he lost his wallet one day. The next day, he brought a different wallet and lost it too. In the same place, the same way. He left his wallet in his food tray after lunch, which he had to put on those tray carts by himself. 2 days in a row, he put his tray there with his wallet on it still. Now his third year. This was the highlight story for the year, otherwise this post becomes painfully longer. Nothing that year will come close to this single point. Enjoy. Everyone knew Kevin by now, and most people tried to maintain a certain distance, because, you know, it's Kevin. We were 2 months into the first semester, and Kevin sits next to me in class. The only class we have in common because he failed almost every module last year. He looks tired, and I ask him if everything is okay. His response, "Yeah bro, this year has been harder. I have a lot more classes. My entire week schedule is completely full." And I'm thinking to myself, how? He has to redo the failed modules and he can't enroll in new ones until he passes those, so his schedule should be pretty much the same as last year. I ask him to see his schedule. He hands me a sheet printed from the university website with the schedule, and I simply say, "You are a moron." In my university, you have multiple classes that are the same lecture during the week. When you enroll, you have to choose which one you want to attend weekly. Like thermal physics class 1, 2, 3. If you choose class 1 for thermal physics, you would only have to attend a class for thermal physics that was marked as class 1. Classes 2 and 3 were the exact same lecture as class 1, but a different time and day of that week. This system allows students to make their own schedule when they enroll. For instance, I had one day off and one afternoon off because I chose to. This moron was attending all of them. This bottomless pit of stupidity was attending all classes for all modules, even on Saturdays, which are meant for working students. And he was 2 months deep into this without realizing that he was hearing the same thing. He was attending the exact same lectures word for word 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on how many classes were open for a given module. He had so many overlaps that it wouldn't even be possible to attend everything, but apparently he was trying. Plus, there were practical sessions that were not starting until the last few weeks of the semester, and I told him all of this. You know that if you attend this module on Monday and Thursday, you don't have to attend any of the other lectures for that module that week, right? Because the other ones are just repetitions, and these practical sessions only start in 2 weeks. He is dumbfounded and says, "Oh, are you sure? So that's why nobody was there at the practical sessions venue every morning. I thought I was crazy." This buffoon has been waiting by the lab doors to have classes that don't exist yet for 2 months. I reply, "Dude, no offense, but you are crazy. How come you thought this schedule was correct in the first place? You are not a freshman anymore. You should know this. Didn't you choose your classes this year like in previous years? And besides, all I just said to you is written here." In small letters, but still. The different classes, the dates for when practical sessions take place, you just had to read the frickin' thing. He just very happily and with his same foolish smile let me know that in previous years, he just followed people around into classes. Here's the kicker. He confessed that in more than one occasion, he confused a group of chemists or biologists with a physics group and went to their classes in another building across campus. That wasn't even near the physics building. Only halfway through the lecture, he would realize that he wasn't in a physics class. Sometimes because what the professor was saying seemed weird to him. Other times because he couldn't recognize any of the students, and the majority of them had biology written on their back. He was smiling and found it super funny. He was almost proud of himself. I was just feeling defeated and couldn't believe my ears. This post is long enough, I think. I'll be writing part 2 if there is any interest, but things do escalate a bit towards the end. I find it funny now, but then not so much. And he did make a part 2 and a part 3, I believe, so I'll make sure to read that in another episode-y. But, oh my, how do you... See, sometimes I feel really bad because honestly, there might be some sort of learning disability with some of these Kevins, and I don't want to laugh at that because that's really nothing that can be helped. I want to give the stories the benefit of the doubt, but like, come on, how? This story's called Kevins Are Hitting the Slopes. Before I share some stories, I should lay some foundation. I worked at a ski hill in Canada for about 7 years as a chairlift operator, a fancy title for someone who was just there to make sure the ski lift was running and to do his best to prevent suicide or manslaughter by stupidity. For those who have never experienced temperatures below -40 Celsius, I should also explain snowboarding and skiing. The sport is effectively zip-tying planks to your feet, going down a hill, and trying not to die. You can also spice it up by doing jumps and tricks. As sports, skiing and snowboarding don't require much physical fitness. I've seen people in their 90s go faster on slopes than highways. Or brains. I've seen many children not old enough to write their names able to ski backwards. Are you sure that's intentional? No. What is required is courage. I've been on hills so steep, the only thing preventing tumbling to my death was my ability to maintain Mach 1. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough force to keep my board on terra firma. So, a sport that requires more balls than brains is a fertile ground for Kevins. Here are some of their stories. Safety is for the sober. Kevin 1 gets drunk. Kevin 1 goes up the chairlift. Kevin 1 does not put the safety bar down. Several meters from the top of the hill, he passes out and falls down several stories. A mere mortal would have hoped for death because at that height, you would be likely to end up in a wheelchair for life. But this drunk Kevin might as well be Gumby himself. The only reason he didn't walk away was that he was too drunk to walk. Colorblind Kevins. Working at a ski hill for so long, you start seeing Kevin patterns. I discovered they are like deer and cannot see neon orange. You see, all of our barriers were neon orange and Kevin's could not see them, so they always went around them. Kevin 2 was approaching the chairlift, ignored the neon orange line and a sign that said wait here. He then stopped to wait his turn, leaned onto his ski poles and turned to Kevin 3 to chat. When the steel chair support struck his head, the sound of an empty rain barrel rang out and all believed that he suffered permanent brain damage. However, this is Kevin. Any damage would have been impossible to notice. The medical staff figured it was a minor concussion at worst. His perpetual dazed look was simply his brain trying to comprehend actions have consequences. Camo Kevin. Kevin 4 and Kevin 5 are going on the chairlift. They decide making the lift bounce sounds like a good idea. However, behind them is a young girl, and the bouncing makes her slip under the bar. By the time they all reach the top, the girl is hanging on for dear life, Mission Impossible style. Focused on making sure the girl is safe, the lifty at the top makes a mental note of what they look like, then contacted me at the bottom of the hill to catch them before they try to go back up. The discernible feature I'm looking for? A bright, neon orange one-piece suit. A lighthouse on fire would have been more subtle. But since Kevins are blind to neon orange, I'm convinced he thought he was John Cena. They beelined it to the chalet, but I knew they were just waiting for the heat to die down and that they were going to try another lift. We only had 2 of 3 running. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, I see them heading out. I get my coworker to cover for me and I pull them out of the line. I tore them a new one for about 10 minutes, every minute contemplating if I should just accept a fate in prison knowing the world would be a safer place without Kevins 4 and 5. My power trip ended when my boss came and threw them out. All he told me was to call him next time. That's it for the stories for now. If there's enough interest, I'll share some more in the future. To get ahead of some questions, I should clear something up. Me reprimanding customers was nothing new. Safety being so important on the slopes, I was given a long leash. For those who might think Kevin 1 survived because of soft snow, think again. This was groomed snow. Snow compacted so that it feels like a brick wall when you fall on it from a standing position. I mean, I haven't witnessed anything like that when I used to ski all the time. However, I do have a really funny story from when I used to go skiing. If you guys want to hear it, let me know in the comments below and I'll let y'all hear it. This story's called Today I fudged up by getting my prostate checked out by a doctor in front of my dad. This actually happened on September 11th, 2001, and the memory has just come back to me. Here is a little background leading up to the frick up. I was 11 years old and began to have really bad pains around my lower back. Went to the doctor and x-rays confirmed that I was having a kidney stone. Doctors thought it was highly unusual for an 11-year-old to have kidney stones, so they made me an appointment with a specialist. Fast forward a week later, 9/11. I returned to the specialist doctor so they could check me out and run more tests. So my dad and I are waiting in the room for the doctor, playing I Spy or something, and the doctor walks in. He tells us that he wants to check my prostate to see if there's anything unusual going on. My dad consented, then I was told to drop my pants. The doctor puts on his gloves, gets the lube ready, and then it was go time. The doctor then checks my prostate, feeling all around to determine if there was anything unusual. Here is where the screw up comes. While the doc is doing his thing, I look straight into my dad's eyes and say, "Wow, this feels good." My dad just looks at me with a blank stare. At the time, I didn't think anything of the comment, but now looking back, I'm not sure who felt more uncomfortable, my dad or the doctor who is still conducting the test. I cringe every time I think about this now. You should cringe. I'm sure the doctors encountered worse, but from a kid though.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.